not a good guy. And I am not writing this to get you to like me. Honestly, I never felt an ounce of regret for what I did until that one night. The night that pushed my entire life straight to the edge. 2 years ago, I was a specialized kind of thief. I wasn't the type to smash a window, grab a TV, or rummage around for jewelry. No, I stole time. I stole people's privacy and their peace of mind. I called myself a day creeper. My method was simple. I would scout nice, quiet suburban neighborhoods, looking for houses where working couples lived. I would watch them back out of their driveways at exactly 8 a.m. heading for the office. The second their car cleared the block, I was at their back door with my lockpick set. Within seconds, I was inside without leaving a trace. I would spend hours in those houses. I sat on their expensive couches, drank their coffee, and read the personal letters tucked away in their nightstands. Sometimes, I would move random things on the dining table, just an inch to the left, just so I could imagine the utter confusion on their faces when they got home from work. It gave me this incredible, intoxicating, dangerous rush, knowing I was a ghost haunting their perfect lives. But then, I picked the wrong house on Elm Street, and that was the biggest and last mistake of my life. It was a gorgeous 2-story colonial. The owners were a young couple who left for work every morning at exactly 8:15. I had staked them out for 3 straight days. Their schedule was flawless. On the 4th day, around 9 a.m., with the street completely empty, I slipped through the back door. Quiet, totally undetected. The second I stepped inside, it felt like walking into a vacuum. There was this heavy, suffocating silence. Usually in an empty house, you hear the hum of the fridge or the ticking of a clock, but here, nothing. The air was so freezing cold I could see my breath, even though it was the middle of May. I crept toward the kitchen, intending to grab a glass of juice like I always did. But as I reached the counter, I froze. Right there, dead center on the kitchen island, was a plate. And on that plate were fresh, warm chocolate chip cookies. Steam was literally rising off them, like they had been pulled from the oven 60 seconds ago. But the thing that truly set off alarm bells was the handwritten note resting next to the plate. In elegant cursive, it read, "We knew you would choose today." Reading that line, my heart completely stopped. A cold, primal terror shot straight down my spine. I stood there, paralyzed, holding my breath, straining to hear any sign of life in the house. But it was dead quiet. No footsteps. No movement. With shaking hands, I tried to rationalize it, telling myself the note was for a relative or a friend. Maybe the cookies were for a neighbor. I took a deep breath and reached out to put the note back. That is when my eyes landed on the object right next to the plate. It was a small silver keychain with a distinct deep scratch on the metal. It was my keychain, the exact one I had lost 3 weeks ago, inside a completely different house across town. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. My hands were shaking so violently I had to lean against the counter. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a trap. Someone knew about me. Someone was tracking me. I backed away from the counter. And that is when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic scratching sound coming from right inside the drywall. It didn't sound like mice or squirrels. It sounded like human fingernails. Someone was dragging their nails slowly down the interior wood of the wall. It started near the ceiling and crept downward, stopping right at eye level, right in front of where I was standing. My brain went completely numb. The cocky thief routine was gone. I was terrified. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I bolted for the front door. I grabbed the heavy brass deadbolt, but before I could turn it, the lock twisted violently by itself from the outside, clicking shut. I stumbled backward, my eyes wide with horror. And then, A voice whispered through the mail slot at the bottom of the door. It was heavy, distorted, and so incredibly close it felt like it was right in my ear. It said, "Don't leave yet. We just put the tea on." I didn't dare look back. I sprinted toward the sunroom at the back of the house. There was a large glass sliding door. Without thinking, I grabbed a heavy stone vase and threw it full force against the glass. It shattered with a deafening crash. I scrambled through the broken frame into the yard, tearing my jeans and slicing my leg on a shard of glass. I didn't even feel the pain. I sprinted across the backyard, threw myself over the fence, and ran the 3 blocks to my car like death itself was on my heels. I threw it in drive and tore out of that neighborhood so fast my tires shrieked against the asphalt. After that day, I quit day creeping forever. I started locking my own doors from the inside, kept my blinds drawn 24/7, and took a dead-end retail job. I genuinely thought I had escaped that nightmare, but I was wrong. It was only the beginning. Exactly 1 week later, around 3 in the morning, I woke up to a strange metallic click. The room was pitch black. I sat up in bed, looking around in the dark. Suddenly, my phone lit up on the nightstand. It was a text message from an unknown number. I picked it up with a trembling hand and opened it. It was a photo, and that photo was of me. It was taken from the upper corner of my bedroom ceiling, looking straight down at me, sleeping soundly in my bed. Right below the photo was a single line of text. "You used to like watching. Why did you stop?" I didn't close my eyes for the rest of the night. The second the sun came up, I packed 2 bags with whatever I could find and abandoned that apartment and that city for good. Now I live 2 states away in a crowded high-rise apartment in the middle of a bustling city. I am surrounded by people at all times, but still, I never sleep with the lights off. I spent a year being the shadow in other people's homes. But now, I know what is actually waiting in the dark. And believe me, it is much, much worse. I was a courier, but I didn't deliver Amazon packages or FedEx boxes. I worked for people on the dark web, moving things they didn't want the cops finding, like hard drives loaded with hacked data or stacks of dirty cash. It was highly illegal, but the money was insane. I had one rule: never open the package. Just drop it off, get paid, and walk away. 3 months ago, I got a strange assignment. I had to deliver a heavy wooden crate to an isolated abandoned farmhouse deep in rural Oklahoma. The drop-off time was exactly 2 a.m. The client gave me strict instructions. Take the crate straight to the basement. And if you hear any noises down there, do not stop. Get out immediately. I pulled up to the farmhouse at 1:45 a.m. There wasn't another house for miles, just dead fields and silence. I hauled the heavy crate out of my trunk. The second I lifted it, I felt a faint vibration, like something was gently tapping the inside wood of the box. I forced myself to ignore the panic, pushed open the front door, which was already unlocked, and stepped inside. There were no lights. I clicked on my flashlight and headed straight for the basement stairs just like I was told. The basement door was heavy iron. When I pulled it open, the stench hit me. It smelled like old books, mixed with rotting meat. I walked down the creaking steps and set the crate on the concrete floor. As I turned to leave, a shadow stepped into the doorway, right at the top of the stairs. It wasn't an old man. He was incredibly tall, impossibly thin, and he was wearing a creepy plastic, smiling mask. My breath caught in my throat. I shined my flashlight at him, but he didn't even flinch. Suddenly, from right behind me, a violent, shrieking scream erupted from inside the wooden crate. Something began slamming against the wood, trying to break out. I screamed, terrified. and bolted up the stairs. But the man in the mask slammed the heavy iron door shut, and through the latch from the outside, I was trapped in the pitch black of the basement. Behind me, the wood was splintering, and from the slot in the door above, the masked man spoke in a freezing, monotone voice. "The new courier has arrived. Now the crate belongs to you." I don't know where the adrenaline came from, but I spotted a tiny cellar window near the ceiling. I scrambled up, scraped my shoulders raw, and squeezed my way out into the dirt. I ran to my car and drove away without looking back. I quit that line of work for good. But to this day, whenever I hear a package hit my front porch, my entire body goes completely numb. I spent 5 years as an illegal tow truck driver. Me and my partner, Leo, would cruise private parking lots at night, targeting cars parked in no parking zones. We would hook them up and extort the owners for cash to get their cars back. It was legal blackmail, and we were damn good at it. One night, around 1 a.m., we were checking a desolate parking lot behind a shuttered, abandoned shopping mall. We found an old, black SUV sitting in the corner. The windows were heavily tinted. We immediately backed our truck up and started hooking the chains to the frame. While we were working, I glanced through the glass. The tint was thick, but I could swear someone was sitting in the back seat. They were completely still, sitting perfectly upright. I whispered to Leo, "Hey man, looks like someone is asleep in there." He just laughed. "Let them sleep. When the wheels leave the ground, they'll wake up real fast." The moment the lift engaged and the SUV started tilting, the back door swung wide open. Nobody stepped out, but a horrific, distorted laugh echoed across the empty parking lot. It sounded like an old man laughing, but the pitch was completely unnatural. Suddenly, all the lights and indicators on our tow truck began flashing erratically on their own. The truck engine died with a heavy thud. I stepped away from the truck and cautiously walked toward the open door of the SUV. I shined my flashlight inside. The back seat was empty. There was no human, just a massive, life-sized mannequin sitting there, with real human hair glued to its scalp. In its hand, it held an old tape recorder, playing that loop of horrific laughter. I jumped back, and right then, a blood-curdling scream tore out from inside our truck cab. It was Leo. I spun around. Inside the truck, in the driver's seat, sat someone else. A towering figure in a long black coat, his hands wrapped tightly around Leo's throat. Leo's face was turning a deep shade of purple. I was paralyzed with fear. I grabbed a tire iron from the asphalt and took a step toward the cab. But then, the figure in the black coat twisted his neck a full 180 degrees and looked straight at me. His eyes were solid white, no pupils. He spoke in a low, raspy growl. "Picked the wrong car, Hunter." I dropped the iron, turned around, and sprinted toward the highway without looking back. Leo was never seen again. The cops found our truck and the empty SUV the next morning. They think it was a gang dispute, but I know. That night, we didn't hook a car. We hooked something from a completely different world. I used to run a small antique shop, but my real business was running scams. Whenever desperate people brought in heirlooms, like old gold coins or vintage watches, I would lie to them. I'd tell them their stuff was fake or worthless, buy it from them for pennies, and flip it on the dark web for thousands. I prided myself on being a con artist. Last November, a deeply unsettling, mysterious old woman walked into my shop. She was wearing a tattered black dress. Without saying a single word, she placed a stunning, antique pocket watch on the counter. The metal was covered in bizarre engravings, unlike anything I had ever seen. I examined it. It was solid gold, and the gems inside were priceless. It was worth at least $50,000. I went straight into my routine. I sighed and said, "This is just plated brass. It is worthless, but out of pity, I can give you $50 for it." The woman stared at me. Her eyes were dead, completely devoid of life. With a twisted, hollow smile, she whispered, "Keep it, but remember, this watch doesn't just tell time, it consumes it." She took the cash and walked out. I was thrilled. I locked up the shop early and took the watch back to my private office. I started cleaning the casing. At exactly midnight, the watch let out a deep, heavy chime. And right then, every single light in the shop died. I stood up, heading for the main showroom. Instantly, I felt the air shift. It grew so thick and heavy I could barely breathe. And then, I heard a ticking sound, but it wasn't coming from the pocket watch on my desk. The sound was coming from everywhere. It was inside the walls. Hundreds of clocks, ticking in perfect, rapid unison. I pulled out my phone and switched on the flashlight. The second the beam hit the corner of the room, my heart dropped. Every antique painting, every vintage mannequin, every mirror had shifted. The mannequins, which had been facing the walls, were now turned, staring directly at me, and from their painted eyes, thick black liquid was dripping onto the floor. I stumbled back, and as I reached into my pocket, I noticed my skin felt loose, wrinkled. I flipped my phone camera around to look at my face, and a scream tore from my throat. Within 5 minutes, I had aged 80 years. My hair was stark white. My hands were gnarled and shaking. That watch was stealing my time. I scrambled toward the desk, grabbed the pocket watch, and slammed it onto the hardwood floor with everything I had. The glass shattered. A piercing shriek echoed through the room, and the lights flickered back on. I ran to the mirror. My face was back to normal, but to this day, a patch of hair on the side of my head remains completely white. I sold the shop the very next morning, and I never scammed another soul, because I realized when you steal from the vulnerable, the universe will eventually find a way to steal your entire life. If you want to survive the night, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Because on this channel, the shadows are always watching, and you never know when your story might be next. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt a chill down your spine, and smash that like button if you made it to the very end. Stay safe out there, and until next time, keep your eyes open and your doors locked.